The word Jash is, in Kurdish context, one of the most insulting terms that can be used toward another Kurd. Its historical and deeper meaning is political, and there is much more to explore about the term than just its definition. In this video, we will go through everything there is to know about the term Jash. But before we start, don't forget to like this video, leave your opinion in the comments below, and subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss any future videos. The word Jash literally means donkey foal in Kurdish, but after these historical events, it took on a much deeper and more serious meaning. From then on, calling someone a Jash became synonymous with calling them a traitor or collaborator. Around the 1940s, when Iraq was still a monarchy ruled by King Faisal II, a police force was established specifically to maintain control over Bashur, what is now Iraqi-occupied Kurdistan. This police force was mostly composed of Arabs and had mixed results in maintaining control over the Kurdish regions. Eventually, it became clear to the Iraqi monarchy that inside information was needed to suppress the Kurds in the north. A campaign was launched to recruit Kurds into the police force in exchange for greater social benefits. Some Kurds initially accepted the offer and joined the police force. However, they were discriminated against within the force and were not given high-ranking positions in the Iraqi authorities, nor were they treated well socially. Within the police, the Kurdish officers were placed at the bottom of the hierarchy, regardless of how well they performed. Among the Kurdish population, these lower-ranked officers were commonly referred to as Polisi Jash. According to the book No Friends But the Mountains by Swedish diplomat Ingmar Carlsson, these Kurdish Jashes were called Fursan, meaning night, by the Iraqi regime, a name that clearly contradicted how the regime actually treated them. The Jash system was rooted in sectarian and clan-based issues among Kurds. Each clan placed its fighters at the disposal of the Iraqi regime in exchange for money for each soldier they provided. These soldiers were exempt from compulsory military service and were often poorly educated and equipped. In practice, they lived their lives more or less normally, simply waiting for the moment when their collaboration would be activated. Today, it might seem unjustified for Kurds to have collaborated with Iraq. So why did they do it? For many Kurds, strong loyalty to their clan took precedence over nationalism, which was still a new and unfamiliar concept at the time. When the Iraqi state supported their local clan, cooperating in return felt legitimate, especially when it also meant fighting rival clans in the area. It's also important to note that although Jashes historically had a significant negative impact on the Kurdish cause and resistance movement, there were occasions when Jashes supported Kurdish fighters. This is one reason why the Iraqi regime never fully trusted them. They could never be certain where the Jashes' loyalty truly lay. When Saddam Hussein rose to power during the Ba'ath regime generations later, the Iraqi regime invested even more resources into the Jash collaborators. At this point, Kurdish Jashes not only provided intelligence to the Iraqi regime, but also fought directly against the Peshmerga forces. At its peak, the number of Jashes reached 250,000, almost 3 times the size of the combined Peshmerga forces of the KDP and PUK. The oppression under Saddam Hussein was so aggressive and brutal that for some Jashes the motivation for collaborating was not only economic, it was also about survival or direct threats to their families by the regime. Saddam's regime also gave Jashes higher ranks within Kurdish institutions, something that was not common before. During the Al-Anfal campaign, in which over 180,000 Kurds were killed, the Jashes played a significant role in fighting the Kurdish resistance. Heroes like Mama Risha were among those killed after being betrayed by Jashes. In 1991, the Jashes played a major role in the Raparin Uprising against Saddam Hussein. According to several sources, including A Modern History of the Kurds by David McDowell, the Jashes negotiated with the Ba'ath regime at various points to retreat from Kurdish cities, making it easier for the Peshmerga to take control during the uprising. Just before the uprising, the KDP and PUK had offered amnesty to the Jashes if they defected, demonstrating the true nature of the Jash identity, always siding with the winning party, regardless of ethnic origins. Although the term originated in Iraqi-occupied Kurdistan, similar cases have been seen in other parts of Kurdistan. In Iranian-occupied Kurdistan, the iconic Kurdish Republic established by national hero Qazi Muhammad collapsed after only a year, partly due to infiltration by Kurdish collaborators. In Turkish-occupied Kurdistan, the war against village guard became a controversial chapter in the history of the PKK. The Turkish state paid Kurdish villagers to act as spies and collaborators against the PKK in the 80s and 90s, something that made collaborators a direct target of the PKK. Later, it has been revealed that many of the collaborators were forced by the Turkish state to work for them, or get their house, or in some cases, their entire village burned down. In case some people find it unrealistic, the reason that Ahmed or Diyarbakir got an increasingly boost of population during the 80s and 90s was due to the fact that Turkey was destroying hundreds of villages around the city at the time, leading to large scale of refugees into the bigger cities. In Rojava, Syrian-occupied Kurdistan, the Syrian regime tried its best to neutralize the Kurdish threat in the northern parts of the country. In 1949, several things were done to neutralize the Kurds, such as forbidding Kurdish music and publications in Kurdish. The Kurds were also broadly accused for cooperating with Israel at a time when that state was being founded. What is very sad is that these politics were introduced by Adib al-Shishlaki, president of Syria and partly Kurd himself. In the book No Bigger Than a Kalashnikov by Amineh Kakabaveh, page 61, we can read, Jash was dressing just like the Peshmerga. Sometimes it was a benefit. One time a battalion from Gurdon 31 Bukan was surrounded by thousands of Iranian Pasdaran in the nearbys of Torjan. At first, a local Jash group came towards them. One of the leaders of the surrounded Peshmerga group named Karim Ilkani was very calm and said to the women in his group to put on their jamana, something that was very common to do by men. As they stood eye to eye with the enemy, he then said, "Let us go, we are Jashes from the Bukan area." The original Jashes believed them and let them go, and at that point, Karim saved many lives. The word Jash had at this point become increasingly common in the Kurdish society. But it was during the first Kurdish civil war from 1994 to 1997 that the word took on a whole new meaning among Kurds. In August 1996, Masoud Barzani made a decision that shocked the Kurdish people and the world. In a desperate move to retake Erbil from the rival PUK, he invited Saddam Hussein's Republican Guard into Iraqi Kurdistan. The same Saddam who, just 8 years earlier, had carried out the Anfal genocide and chemical attacks on Kurds. The Iraqi army entered Erbil, executed dozens of PUK members and Iraqi opposition activists, and handed the city over to the KDP. This act was seen by many as an unforgivable betrayal, allying with the very dictator who had committed genocide against the Kurdish people. Barzani defended the move, calling it a tactical necessity to stop Iranian-backed domination by the PUK. But for many Kurds, the damage was done. On the other side, the PUK had its own controversial alliances. Throughout the civil war, the PUK received direct support from Iran, military aid, intelligence and logistics. Iran, with its own oppressive policies toward its Kurdish population, used the PUK as a proxy to expand its influence in the region. Jalal Talabani's close relationship with Iranian intelligence, especially the Pasdaran, raised deep suspicions. Meanwhile, the KDP cooperated with Turkey, another historic oppressor of Kurds. Turkey, known for banning the Kurdish language and crushing Kurdish identity, launched military operations against the PKK inside KDP territory with KDP's permission. In fact, Turkey still maintains military bases in these areas to this day. Even before the open conflict, Saddam had tried to divide the Kurds, negotiating separately with both parties. In 1993 and 1994, Talabani himself traveled to Baghdad to meet with Saddam in an attempt to strike a deal for greater Kurdish autonomy. Although no agreement came from those talks, the very act of negotiating with Saddam was widely condemned, especially since the PUK would later criticize the KDP for doing the same. In the end, both parties were accused of betraying the national cause, and this became the turning point where the word Jash started to be used much more widely and easier. The story of the Jashes is a painful reminder of how betrayal can tear communities apart from within. It has in many ways weakened the Kurdish cause, but at the same time motivated and strengthened the most brave and loyal Kurdish fighters' cause for freedom and independence. What do you think about this topic? Let me know in the comments section, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.